Human Phenotypic Variation by Kieran, Sanjana, Emma, and Madison.
Human genetic variance is the genetic difference between different groups of people. It could be different nationalities, different races, different genders, different ethnicities, etc. We share about 99.9% of our DNA with other humans. This means that there is a 0.1 difference between individuals. These differences could include different hair color, eye color, height, gender, and race. We share about 60% of our DNA with a banana, and it's kind of shocking because a banana is a fruit while we are an actual human being. So when you first think about the appearance of someone, the first thing that you notice is their skin color. So the different shades and different tones of skin color is caused by an amino acid called melanin. This is something that your body naturally produces, and it controls the pigmentation and the tanning of the skin. Melanin is also responsible for the pigmentation of the eye color and hair color. Your skin color also depends where you live. So people who live closer to the equator line, such as countries in Africa and India, they are exposed to more ionization radiation from the sun. So their body naturally produces more melanin to protect them from the sun's harmful UV rays, and thus protecting them from skin cancer. However, people who live farther away from the equator line, such as people who live in Europe, aren't exposed to as much radiation from the sun, so thus their body doesn't produce as much melanin and they have lighter skin tones. However, the skin color that you are born with can be changed. It's not something that you have to deal with forever. Some people undergo skin bleaching, which uses harmful chemicals to alter the skin color. Other people are born with a medical condition called vitiligo, in which there are different skin colors in patches on a person. And then again, we talked about how different locations also cause different skin colors. There is a lot of controversy surrounding skin color just because most people believe that lighter skin is more beautiful and darker skin is, in other words, ugly. This causes a lot of racism and racial tension and social tension in many different countries. Some people also believe that lighter skin people are richer and darker skin people are poorer, because darker skin means that you are in the sun a lot, so that means that you're working outside and you're putting a lot of hard work. However, lighter skin means that you're richer because you get to be inside and just relaxing and not in the harsh sun outside every single day. In India, many people also believe that darker skin is not preferred. So if someone was going to have a marriage proposal, they would prefer to marry someone with lighter skin because they thought that was beautiful. So cosmetic companies such as Fair & Lovely have been using this highly edited propaganda to show that using their skin bleaching cream, which uses many harmful chemicals, will lighten your skin. Obviously, this is not true because you can definitely tell this is an edited photo. And this kind of propaganda pushes the topic and feeling that lighter skin is beautiful and that darker skin is ugly. Other people also go under cosmetic surgery to change their skin color and using chemical peels, which can damage your skin, which protects your entire body. I mean, it's the largest organ of the body, so it's very dangerous to use these chemical peels and skin bleaching creams. Some people who are lighter skin also like to go to tanning salons or tan in the sun, which would make their skin darker. Again, this is very dangerous because if you can get easily burned and your skin can peel, and if you're not using the proper sunscreen, you can also get skin cancer from being repeatedly exposed to UV radiation from the sun.
The sun is a part of our universe, and it is always there. The sun is necessary for our survival and our health because it produces ultraviolet rays, which initiates the process of making vitamin D in the skin. Vitamin D helps us build and maintain a strong skeleton. It does this by regulating the absorption of calcium from the foods that we eat. Sunlight is good for us, but too much of it, and it can become harmful. Ultraviolet radiation is a highly energetic and visible form of solar radiation. These come from the sun and can damage DNA, which can result in skin cancer. It can also affect your reproductiveness, which weakens your ability to have kids. It is important to wear sunscreen because it has special molecules that reduce UVR damage by absorbing the rays. Wearing sunscreen can help protect you from skin cancer. However, not every skin color needs to wear sunscreen, or at least not the same amount. The darker your skin means you have more melanin in your body. Melanin is a very effective natural sunscreen, so it protects you from the sun's harmful rays. In general, the lighter your skin, the more sunscreen you should apply due to less melanin. So the risk for a burn and developing skin cancer is increased. Not only can sunlight cause cancer, but it can also break down important vitamins such as folate. Folate is a vitamin that is important for the development of healthy fetuses. Too much sunlight can cause this to break down. Folate is needed to produce DNA and also supports cell metabolism. Without these processes, cancer is often the result. Skin cancer is a deadly disease, so we should take all the measures to try and keep our body healthy by maintaining a healthy amount of sunlight and wearing proper UV protection to keep our cells and DNA intact. Folate is also critical for the proper formation of our central nervous system. Our central nervous system is responsible for our brain and our spinal cord, which are important to keep us alive. Our skin color is related to the amount of melanin in our body. Melanin is found in the deep layers of the skin. It is a dark pigment that is produced by melanocytes, which are cells located in the skin's epidermis. It was found that through evolution, the amount of melanin could have increased due to more UVR exposure. This is also shown through our early ancestors. As they had moved to warmer climates, they would have to adjust to new norms. The increased heat caused hair loss, they gained the ability to sweat, and got darker skin. When they lost their body hair, there was evolutionary pressure to protect the newly exposed skin. Through natural selection, the solution was to make the dark pigmentation permanent. This means they had natural protection in their skin, which we refer to as melanin. There is often a debate about where skin color comes from and how it evolved over time. We associate people with darker skin to live closer to the equator because UVR exposure is higher in those parts, and people living there need protection from the sun. As we notice, the change in skin color tends to be lighter towards the poles is an example of a continuous trait variation. Researchers used to think that skin color was due to the exposure of excessive heat or cold. Light skins would be associated with excessive cold and excessive heat with darker skin tones. However, the Inuit do not follow this theory. The Inuit live in a very northern location, so we would assume that they would have lighter skin, but this is not the case. Scientists think there is an exception to the climate and skin tone correlation because of the snow. Snow reflects high levels of UV, and the Inuits are often exposed for long hours at a time to the snow, and their darker pigmentation helps protect them from the sun's reflective rays. Now scientists can determine that 87% of variation in our skin color is directly correlated with ultraviolet radiation from the sun. This shows that original theories were correct, saying that skin color is often darker as you move closer to the equator and lighter as you move away. This is mainly true, however, there are a few exceptions that don't follow this.
The complex patterns of human variation reflect a history of human movement and mixing that has gone on since our origins in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago. Africa is the birthplace of modern humans and is the source of the geographic expansion of ancestral populations into other regions of the world. Indigenous Africans are characterized by high levels of genetic diversity within and between populations. Genetic variation is an important force in evolution as it allows natural selection to increase or decrease frequency of alleles already in the population. Some genetic variation can be positive, providing an advantage in changing environments. A little over a decade ago, the majority of genetic data on the relationship of human populations consisted of mitochondrial DNA haplogroups with the beginning of Y chromosome, the Y haplogroups. Because new mutations arose on those non-recombining molecules as humans' populations expanded, maps of migration patterns were developed. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, we and others were accumulating autosomal polymorphism data on sites with low mutation rates. SNPs, which are single nucleotide polymorphisms, and we were beginning to find that each independent polymorphism showed a different allele frequency pattern around the world. Some patterns were very similar, but others were very different. Quite sophisticated models have been developed to show that genetic drift accumulates along expansion routes and that this accumulation is relevant to autosomal loci as well as mitochondrial DNA with mutations occurring along the expansion pathway. Drift will result in some variation being lost, but also some new variation. Example, a new mutation mtDNA, NRY, or autosomal genes reaching high frequency. Finding new variations may help researchers find new types of diseases and speed up the process of how to cure the diseases. With the completion of the Human Genome Project in 2003, researchers began to pinpoint areas of the genome that varied between individuals. Shortly thereafter, they discovered that the most common type of DNA sequence variation found in the genome is a single nucleotide polymorphism. In fact, there are an estimated 10 million SNPs that commonly occur in the human genome. A worldwide effort is known as the HapMap Project seeks to identify and localize these and other genetic variants and to learn how the variants are distributed within and among populations from different parts of the world. To date, the project has identified over 3.1 million SNPs across the human genome that are common to individuals of African, Asian, and European ancestry. As shown on the slides, the 4 maps show the migration from Africa to Europe, to Asia, and then to Australia. The different dots represent different groups of people, and as you can see, different variations of people traveled all around the world, which surprised people as they saw many new different types of people with different skin colors, hair colors, etc. As people were trading for resources and looking for new land, the variations of people spread all around the world to all different places. A major event that happened during these times that affected the variation was the advance and retreat of glaciers during the past 100,000 years. With the increase in glaciation, sea levels dropped. Most of what is now Indonesia would have been a single landmass 20,000 years ago. Thus, retreat from the north as glaciers advanced and subsequent re-expansion to those areas much more recently all complicate the modern picture. Nonetheless, the drawings of more than a decade ago provide a fair overview of modern human variation until the large-scale migrations of historic times. Sometime more recently than 40,000 years BP, some of the populations from Siberia and the east coast of Asia migrated to the Americas and expanded to occupy both North and South America. Some additional variation was lost during the colonization, but the effect was less than the associated with the migration out of Africa. Many new variations of people came during this time.
The origins of scientific racism came from a well-known scientist from the 1800s named Samuel Morton. He compared skull sizes between different races and determined that there were 5 distinct races: Caucasian, Mongolian, Southeast Asian, Native American, and Ethiopian. The research that he had done laid the foundation of using human phenotypic variation to justify all of the differences seen between different racial groups. His ideas were formed before there was a knowledge of DNA and how it worked. Researchers later compared genomic sequences between people of different races and determined that the idea of race has no genetic or scientific basis. We know that all humans originated from Africa and that geographical isolation accounts for a lot of mutations that occurred and were prevalent in certain populations. What is interesting and not very widely talked about is the fact that within the continent of Africa, there is more variation between people from there than there is between people from certain parts of Africa and the rest of the world. For example, the Khoisan, who live in southern Africa, and the Pygmies, who live in Central Africa, have a much larger genetic variation than a white person of European descent and a black person of East African descent. This is because there was geographical isolation between the two groups for tens of thousands of years before humans even left Africa. Once migration out of Africa started happening, people started settling down in different geographically isolated areas of the world and started to accumulate their own distinct set of mutations. Because mutations are random, most of them were neither harmful or helpful, but the few that were helpful usually were only helpful within the setting that the population was in. Natural selection only happens when a certain trait helps an individual have a higher fitness, and higher fitness is relative to the environment where that population is. Ever since some of those mutations have occurred, there has been lots of migration of different groups of people to different parts of the world. Even though they have changed locations, they still possess the phenotype of whatever that mutation caused them to have. This means that looking at skin color doesn't tell you anything inherent about a person, but rather gives you an idea of what their ancestry might look like. While the use of different phenotypic features in humans has long been used to separate people from one another and justify horrific treatment of certain groups of people, like the Jews killed in the Holocaust and African American slaves in the South, it should not be something that is completely disregarded in society. It is important to find a balance between uniting people together by the similarities we share and celebrating the differences that make us all unique.